We're not even wearing pants. Come at me, bro.
Which incidentally you'd think would make them scared.
It's all out in the open, baby.
Is that the bilge water? No, the runoff. No. Welcome to the Kindred Spirit Podcast, a show all about the board game Spirit Island. Here we'll talk about analytics and strategies within the game, as well as a plethora of other topics that can be found within it. Today we get to learn all about Scotland, who they are, what they do, and how we killed them.
Laddie, there's spirits on the island, laddie.
You have an atrocious Scottish accent.
Irrelevant.
Aye, me lads, the Scots.
Sounds like a pirate. Am I doing
good?
I love
This
it.
is why you get fired for rules with that.
I can't hold a Scottish accent for like more than 3 seconds, so I totally feel it.
Am I doing Irish or Scottish?
Neither.
Okay.
Let's go! Sorry that I kind of technically spoiled the fact that we won.
Oh yeah,
this
we won.
early. But we'll be getting into that later. Don't you worry.
Good thoughts, Laura.
Nothing. Just complete deadpan nothing.
Well, you said later. I'm waiting.
Later is technically now.
That's true. Scotland is an adversary that came in promotional pack 2. Scotland is a very tricky foe. They are all focused on the coast. Ooh. You're going to see that resembled on their lore and resembled on their tactics and what they do very, very easily. You'll be able to find that theme pretty quick. So let's go ahead and learn about them, shall we?
Let's.
What is the lore behind Scotland?
Scotland's position in northern Britain has always been a balancing act. King James VII plays this role well, playing the larger and more populous Kingdom of England to the south against the Kingdom of Sweden across the North Sea and the powerful Kingdom of France on the European mainland. His efforts are aided by the recent success of the Darien colony on the Isthmus of Panama. Thanks to distrust and rivalry among the major naval powers of England, Sweden, Spain, and France, Scotland has emerged as the primary broker of international trade. The Kingdom of Scotland is currently in a tenuous alliance with Spain, France, and England against the Northern European alliance of the Sweden, Habsburg, and Prussian kingdoms. However, Scottish merchants frequently carry Swedish goods on the side, rendering any attempts to blockade the North Atlantic largely moot. Scotland controls the key colony of Darien, allowing Scottish merchants to transfer goods from the Atlantic to the Pacific without traveling thousands of miles out of their way around South America. With the unique ability to rapidly ship goods to the Pacific, Scotland has begun to quickly settle the Pacific Rim, establishing colonies in other key trading locations throughout the region.
Whenever I hear Pacific Rim,
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I think of the Jaegers, and I just picture
Massive metal mechs punching monsters in the face.
I just think of Jaegers like, screw you, Scotland.
Boom. Such a good soundtrack, too.
It is a good soundtrack. And then the second one came out.
How was that one?
Anyway, so honestly, you go to those movies for the action. You don't go for the plot or anything.
And for those ones, relatively grounded action.
Right.
What?
Well, okay, the camera's grounded. You can tell what's going on.
Okay.
It's funny because I was reminded of so many things when reading the lore. When it says, when they transfer goods from the Atlantic to the Pacific, that one, from the Atlantic to Pacific.
Oh, yeah. That little tune.
Yep.
Is
And then the
terrific.
traveling 1,000 miles, and I would walk 500 miles.
Is that Scottish?
I don't
That's
know,
a Scottish song, isn't
that
it?
came to my
I
mind.
think it is.
Walk 500
The
miles.
Proclaimers.
You know what I mean? Can you see how that, like...
Oh, everything's being
Okay.
triggered.
And then,
in
of
this
course, you can't say the word Pacific Rim. Gypsy danger.
lore. Such a good film.
Anyway, so that is the lore that we have completely smothered in pop culture references.
Hope you wrote that down. What does the book say about the strategy tips, right?
Ironically, there is no book.
There's no book.
There's
Wait.
no book.
No
They
book.
came in a promotional pack.
I must be told what to think.
There's just one little page here, and all it says is aspect cards and all the FAQ for playing as Finder.
it is the Finder FAQ.
And how
Finder
Isolate
book.
works.
It is a Finder little page.
Let's see, how do you do repeats, how downpour works, how isolate works,
How
presence
range
track
works.
bonuses.
Oh, fun.
But yeah, there ain't no tips on what spirits they think you should play. But don't worry, that's what we are here for.
Listen to our opinion.
We're going
That's
to tell
right.
you exactly how to do it, and don't you dare deviate.
Don't worry. Throughout these next 2 episodes, we're going to hear about our opinions and yours, and it's going to be really interesting and cool to look at the data. But that's for next week.
No, only ours.
Oh, only Laura's opinion.
You're making us very
Here's
popular.
how to play Scotland. Don't.
Ooh.
Oh,
You know,
thoughts.
Like,
you don't have to worry about fighting Scotland if you never play Scotland.
Big
Like
brain.
the big brain move.
Ryan's
yeah.
going big brain. What's funny, on the wiki, there's a tab where it says, like, Scotland lore, Scotland strategy. You click on Scotland strategy, and it says, none yet.
It says none for
Wow.
all of them.
Oh,
I
it does?
I just want to,
Oh.
like, am I allowed to, like, put in the links to all of our episodes for
It would
how
be
to
the
fight
worst
them?
thing. At least it would be better
Nobody's
than...
fighting you for the space.
I was going to say, it's an empty market. That seems
Can we just
so...
edit this page?
No, we're infringing on other people's space. But no, hey, if you want strategies and ideas, go Google it on the forum page of Board Game Geek or Reddit, or go look at our own catalog at how to fight all these various adversaries. If you want resources or tips on how to fight them, there you go.
And like we've said, it's not just our tips. We read the comments from the players in the community. So
Yeah, go to the Discord and ask literally anyone. Go to the general tab and say, hey, how do I fight these peeps?
I would first ask Ray about Fractured Days and whether that's a broken spirit or not.
Whatever you do not bring up growth through sacrifice. No. Do not.
It's just, ask that one question. Nuclear explosion. Furious typing.
I feel like I'm laughing with you guys, but because I'm not on the Discord, I don't really know why.
Laura,
just
why
wanna
don't you
be
come over to the
involved.
Discord, baby?
All right, this is starting to get wild. Let's bring it back to
Okay.
Scotland. Let's learn who they are. Yes, they were in Promotional Pack 2. They came alongside Downpour, Drenches the World, and Finder of Paths Unseen. A bunch of other things like aspect cards and diversity of spirits, and a few unique power cards and that kind of thing.
Some really good aspects.
Yeah, Promo Pack 2 is loaded. It's great.
It's the best promo pack.
Anyway, let's go and learn what they actually do here. So, they're one of the annoying ones that actually have a loss condition.
What?
Yeah.
So the additional loss condition is called Trade Hub. If the number of coastal lands with cities is ever greater than 2 times the number of boards, the invaders win. So if you are playing a 2-board game, so 2 times 2, 4
Lands that have cities in them.
Then they
This one, right from the get-go, that sets the tone. They like the coast. Oh, hey, by the way, what do we start the game with on land 2?
Cities.
A city! Ah, great. Yes, this means you literally start the game at them being 50% there.
Oof.
Because if they ever have the number of coastal lands with cities on them equal to twice the amount of boards, but you already have 50% of that number at game start, great.
I feel like this would be extremely difficult solo because if one more city pops
Right.
up, I just lost.
Bye-bye.
If you get one bad early build,
Right, and the cards are just like completely unlucky against you. Ugh.
that would stink. This is why I
That
don't
could
play
be
solo.
rough.
Or at least like one spirit solo.
Yep. Honestly, I feel as if this loss condition in practice ain't so bad, but you gotta be mindful of it. Do not forget, just cities on the coast. Cities on the coast.
Yeah,
cities on the coast.
It sharpens your focus.
Yeah,
to
it really
one
does.
area.
You can't afford to not think about it, but if you are thinking about it, it's actually not so bad. Because you'll probably, as a result of knowing this trade hub condition being in the game, you, the player, are probably going to be more mindful of putting wilds tokens on the coast, badlands on the coast, preventative tokens on the coast, isolations on the coast, that kind of thing. So if you're proactive about it, it's not so bad, but just don't forget about it.
I still feel France, in all the loss conditions so far, is the one most nail-biting.
For me, it's the most pressure-inducing.
Yeah.
Yep, easily the most pressure-inducing. Because this one is just the number of coastal lands with cities in them, not the amount of coastal cities. When it came to France, it was how many towns do they actually have, not how many lands have towns in them.
Oh, and by the way, they start with 4 towns.
Right.
Already.
So if you have one land with a city in it, or one land with 10 cities in it, it's still just one land. So thankfully...
And that's kind of nice.
Right, it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But like I said, at first it seems pretty bad, and if you're not cognizant of it, it can really get away from you.
Sure.
But if you are thinking about it, thankfully it isn't the worst.
The stage 2 escalation is called... Ports sprawl outward. On the single board with the most coastal buildings, towns, or cities, add one town to the n number of lands with the fewest towns. So n being the number of players.
So if you have a 3-player game, add one town to the 3 lands with the fewest towns. This one sucks.
We'll get into this. Mine was always this one of our 3-player game.
Yep.
Mine was just like, yep, it's my board again. Okay, cool.
They spit so many towns because of this. And if you notice, they are adding towns to just the lands that have the fewest buildings. Whether or not those are coastal or inland doesn't matter. Just the number of lands with the fewest towns.
Mm-hmm.
So...
What stings for me in my personal experience, say you're not doing so well with your board.
Yeah.
Then you just keep getting kicked down.
Right.
The worse you're playing in your game, maybe you're not having a good game, bad cards coming up, bad card draws.
Right.
Then the game itself is just like, you're going to get stomped on even more.
Right, because it says on the single board with the most coastal buildings. So it's not happening to everyone. It's only happening to the one character on your team who's having it the hardest.
And I feel like
you in particular.
I feel like everyone's looking at me. I'm just like, yep, it's me again. Cool. I'm having a bad game.
What you want me to do about this, guys?
I get it. I'm not doing well.
I get it. Yeah, that one can really put the spotlight on the player who's the most behind.
Yeah.
And it can really make it difficult for you to get your snowball rolling. And so, thankfully, your other players who are already doing well, like the leaders, just get further ahead. The rich get richer.
True.
Which, it creates this strange form of yin-yang balance where it's like, well, that person over there is getting wrecked. These players over here are fine.
I'm fine.
So if they're fine, they need to quickly boon, to use an Age of Empires term, to quickly go and make a bunch of units, get strong, head over to their friend's board, and help them out. That's actually precisely what happened.
Yeah,
so
but I did feel this stage 2 a lot.
So, looking at level 1, they are at difficulty 3. Ooh. All the hard adversaries in this game start at difficulty level 3. So only Brandenburg and Sweden start at 2, but they have 10 fear cards.
Wow.
Ugh. You'll eventually learn about the fear cards thing, but already right off the bat, we have an extra fear card at 10. So it is in the second stage, so we are at a 3-4-3. And at level 1, Scotland acquires the Trading Port perk. After setup, in coastal lands, explore cards add one town instead of an explorer. The coastal lands invader card do this for a maximum of up to 2 lands per board. Oh.
So this is where you start to feel what Scotland's about, right? We've talked about this. Most adversaries in the first couple levels, like, this is what we are.
Their identity-defining things happen early.
Towns on the coast.
On the coast, explore cards will place a town on the land instead of an explorer. So preventing a build won't stop it. So the problem is that it's when they explore. So it's like, hey, cool, I have a disease here. Nope. After the explore card, add it. Dang it!
No!
They're getting a town. And the problem is that you have very little time to react because when a town goes there after an explore card, guess what's going to be built? Pretty quick. A city.
It's the next thing that comes up. Yeah.
This is why having a slow card that can move towns is great. Or stopping that explore altogether. But more on that later. Thankfully, the coastal lands card that comes up will only have this happen two times on your board, but not 3. That sounds like it's a wow, big whoop. It actually is quite helpful. It still sucks, though. Ugh.
A town is so difficult, like you were saying, when the next thing to build is a city. So it's like, it's kind of easy to stop cities from building on the coast. But what if there's already just towns jumping in there? It accelerates the whole process.
Isolating coastal lands or putting wilds tokens on the coast has never been more important, as those will negate Scotland's level 1 trading portability.
Yeah.
But having other tokens on the coast is good, too. And that's still salient, because you're still going to want to prevent builds like a normal build. But putting Badlands tokens is incredibly, critically nice out there on the coast, because you're going to want all the extra damage out there. So that is their level 1.
Level 2 just ramps it up a little bit to difficulty 4. You get 11 fear cards. All right, so you have 4, and then 3 fear cards. Okay. They have what's called Seize Opportunity. So during setup, you add 1 city to land number 2.
Oh.
Sucks.
2 cities. Awesome.
Boom. Already there.
Hope that explode card
Hey,
doesn't
where
show up
did
first.
we have the first city already from
Land-
standard setup?
Land 2.
Was it in land number 2?
Wait.
Thankfully, it's not in land 1 or 3 because then their loss condition would be like
Sure.
already killing you.
But if that land is the first to show up on your board, it's like, oh, I guess I'm blighting.
Remember how we
Right
talked
now.
about earlier in other episodes how fun it was to kill your starting city early? Well, now you got 2.
We got 6 damage lined up
That's
somewhere.
not good enough.
Never enough.
No.
Anyway, keep going, Laura.
Place coastal lands as the 3rd stage 2 card and move the 2 stage 2 cards above it up by 1. So the new deck order is 1, 1, 2, 2, 1. Coastal lands, 2.
And then all the
3, 3.
So the problem here is that we have another city on land 2, so we're doubling up, and then we're getting some stage 2 cards very early. Your second turn in the game, you're gonna have a stage 2, which means you're gonna have the escalation really, really quick. Because yes, you have those first 2 stage 1 cards, but the first one is burned and set up anyway.
And did I talk about how much I hate that escalation? Because it sucks.
Tell us
So.
one more time, babe.
It's terrible and it comes up quicker. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Here it is.
Yeah, that first stage 1 card you flip for their initial explore, then you have a single turn with having the stage 1, and then you're on to 2s. Thankfully, you will go back to your stage 1, but then that coastal lands card comes a lot earlier. And it's guaranteed, by the way.
It's guaranteed to come.
It's guaranteed to be in here. Sometimes it'll be shuffled out, and there's a chance
True.
it'll be
You
shuffled
won't
out.
have it.
With Scotland, it's guaranteed to hit you.
Kind of a good thing where you do always know when coastal lands is coming up. So you can plan
Yep.
for it. You can have like, okay, I want
And
to have
coastal
this slow
lands
power
does not
here.
have the escalation effect.
True.
Which is really
Which I hate that escalation effect.
It's the worst.
So I think that is the one benefit because this is the only adversary where you will know for sure what is coming up. No one else
Right,
sets
you
up
literally
put
have a
jungles first.
printed timeline right in front of you.
This is when coastal land shows up.
Yep.
So I'm seeing that as a little benefit.
Yep.
True.
You can plan for it.
At least I can see it coming.
I know the bad.
You know, that's what everyone who was, belly facing up on a guillotine was able to say when they saw the blade. At least I saw it coming!
Yikes. This
I don't know
goes
if that was their last thought.
Well, didn't their last thought last longer? Because I heard you can like live after you're beheaded.
Yeah.
Let's get talking about this.
Remember when Creed from The Office was just like, a human could live for like 9 hours after their head's cut off. Don't you mean a chicken? What did I say?
Creepy Creed.
Gotta love them.
Level 3 is now jumping up to 6 difficulty.
Oof.
13 fear cards. 4, 5, 4.
Already, we're at 13.
Yeah.
Some adversaries get around here at their ultimate.
At their max, yeah.
And here we are at level 3.
Chart the coastline. In coastal lands, build cards affect lands without invaders so long as they are adjacent to a city. Oh, so it's England too. Fun. Okay, cool. Adjacent builds. We love these.
Adjacent
Yay.
builds are the worst. I also don't like adjacent builds because those ones are hard to remember also.
It is a hard rule
Right,
to remember.
Because in coastal lands, okay, so it's just the coast,
Okay.
build cards affect lands without invaders so long as there's an adjacent city. Okay, it's like a few things to remember. But hey, you started with land number 2 with 2 cities.
What's on either side of land 2?
Lands 1 and 3,
Oh,
a
no.
coastal land.
Oh, no.
So it's always building in the early game.
Pretty
Oh,
much.
no.
If you can't isolate those lands
Or move 2 cities.
or kill those cities
Or
quick,
kill 'em.
chart the coastline is going to trigger pretty often. Basically, they will have successful builds a lot more often than a normal adversary would.
It is not as bad as England, where it is only on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
This is affecting England is anywhere you can have an adjacency build with 2 buildings next to it. So I'm trying to see the bright side here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's still, it stings. And during
Right.
our game, where it'd be like, oh yeah, there is a city right here.
Yep.
This does build. Because you always feel so good when there's an empty land.
Ha!
You know, you're like, I
know.
did it.
I did. I got something.
I did Spirit Island. I did the game.
Right.
I did the thing.
And
Oh.
France is like, here, explores.
Oh.
Scotland's like, here, builds. England's like, hey, builds. Stop it!
Stop it! I'm a control player. I control the
Right.
board, but what does this do? It
I know.
circumnavigates control. I hate it.
Stop it!
Anyway, that was that.
Moving on to level 4. Their difficulty goes up by 1 from 6 to 7. We get another fear card. Now it is 5, 5, 4.
Wow, early to mid game, huh?
Early to mid game, that is where your fight will be. They acquire the perk Ambition of a Minor Nation. During setup, replace the bottom stage 1 card with the bottom stage 3 card. What this means is now, instead of being 1-1-2-2-1 coastal lands, now it's 1-1-2-2-1 to 3 coastal lands.
Ooh.
I know that those numbers are kind of hard to remember when listening as opposed to seeing it.
This is an audio medium.
What this means is that it's going to be in your mid game on turn 4. You're going to have a stage 3 card. That's pretty early. That's like at the end of early game, the beginning of mid game, you're having 2 lands coming at you.
As a Shadows player, that's my early games.
Right.
I can't grow fast.
Oh, listen to this. In a row, you have an escalation, stage 3 card, coastal land escalation.
Wow.
Ow! Ah!
That's like, what, 6 punches right to the
Right,
face.
and
Boom,
guess what?
Boom, here's the gut. Oh,
Right.
sucker punch.
After that, it's stage 3s for the rest of it.
Oh, fun.
Pucker up! And so they just come at you. So thankfully, this one is simply a fear card increase and a setup thing.
Going to
As far as
Oh, we
remembering,
love that.
We do like that.
it's so easy for the purposes of turn-to-turn remembering, but it just really sets the pace to an aggressive tone from their deck. Usually when you see an adversary tweaking the deck, it's like, I thought this was Brandenburg's deck!
Like I've said this before, I like playing this game. And when you speed it up, it feels a little
Right.
bit uncomfortable, right? It's like, I'm used to those 3 stage 1 cards.
I like having a difficult game that's also a long one.
Yeah.
But not like this!
This. Brandenburg, you kind of know going in like, okay, like, here we go, let's go,
Yeah.
fast punches.
But it's okay, that's what makes them hard.
Yes.
And seeing how it goes so aggressively against my preference is one of the reasons why it was such a fun or difficult challenge.
Yes. Terror 2 victory, by the way.
That's right. Brandenburg was a terror too. Ah, yeah. Wildfire Green.
What a combo.
So then we move into level 5, difficulty 8,
Ugh.
fear cards 15.
Sorry. That's so many.
Many lots. 5, 6, 4.
Oh, 6 in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Hard.
Big ouch.
Mm-hmm.
Runoff and Bilgewater.
That was my nickname back in college.
Oh, never want to be called Bilgewater.
Will Bilgewater show up today?
Actually, what an interesting insult. Bilgewater. You Bilgewater.
Because of this adversary, I've actually used it.
Have you really?
Yeah.
You're so
great.
cool. I like
I
that.
feel like you get called Bilgewater because you like puked in someone's sink or something.
Anyway.
To the topic at hand.
After a Ravage action adds Blight to a coastal land, add 1 Blight to that board's ocean without cascading. Treat the ocean as a coastal wetland for this rule and for Blight removal/movement.
Wait a second, Ocean's not even in this game. Wait, what?
Why are we gonna hate on Ocean?
Oceans was like, oh, I love things on the
I
coast.
know.
Yeah, let's go,
I
let's
know.
go.
You
And then level
think
5
that-
comes.
I know. Ocean's like an adversary that's all about the coast? Ah, yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, ouch.
Oh, no.
Ugh, what this means, getting extra blight out there. It happens to go to the ocean, but just at its base, extra blight. So whenever you add a blight to a coastal land from the result of a ravage action, you add a blight to that board's ocean.
So even if there wasn't a blight in that land, it's technically
Right.
cascading
It's
into the ocean.
cascading. Yeah, it's so annoying when you've done your job to clean up and it still happens. That means if you blight once in that location, you're blighting twice. It's not both in the same land, of course, but it's one there and one to the ocean that's next to it.
So say you have a coastal sands.
Mm-hmm.
You blight, and it blights into the ocean like you were saying. Say sands comes up again. You double blight. It cascades into the inland. There still needs to be blight going into that ocean.
It's ridiculous.
That's was like 3 or 4 blight we're just adding
That's-
from one
Thankfully,
ravage.
It doesn't cascade from itself.
That's good.
Thank goodness.
That is
Otherwise,
good.
that would be really unfair. It'd be a domino effect of sadness that just kills you. But the thing that's so annoying is now you have to be oh so careful with defense on the coast. They are adding extra people because of the stupid chart the coastline build that is happening easier on the coast, but now they're getting extra blight, not on the coast, but on the ocean. But you're gonna have to be on the coast, probably, to have a blight card that's good enough to reach the ocean to get rid of that blight.
Luckily, like you were saying, you are probably already focused on the coast. So hopefully if you're playing at an optimal level and you're focused solely on the coast, you hopefully won't be blighting and then cascading into the ocean. So if your focus is already there, at least you don't have to like shift focus to somewhere else. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the positives. It's a tough rule.
In the Lego movie, the kitty cat must stay
You're
positive.
trying to stay.
As like the cloud paradise land was like getting blown up.
It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Level 6.
Oh,
Let's
boy.
bring it home.
Here we go.
10 difficulty.
Oh.
And here it is. 16 fear cards.
Oh.
The top of
Wait.
any adversary.
I'm sorry. How many again?
16. 6. 4.
664!
6 in the beginning?
You had freaking 12 in the first 2!
You could play a regular game.
12! Oh! Do you have any idea how frustrating it is to be like, yay, our 5th fear card, where are we at? Still Terror 1.
And you realize how sucky Terror level 1 fear cards are. And you get 6 of them.
Honestly, that's the worst.
Remove 1 Explorer. I don't care about Explorers.
Getting level 1 fear cards, because you're just like, yes, I got angry mobs. Still Terror 1. No! I got demoralized. Yes! Still Terror 1. No!
Maybe they stopped like a random build or Explorer, but Terror level 1 fear cards, I mean, purposely done. Obviously, you can't make them too strong or weaker.
Right. And an interesting division, 664. It's interesting because they stayed at 4 ever since level 3 for their tier 3.
Oh yeah, they never added to Terror 3.
Yeah, thank goodness. Honestly, if you can actually get into Terror 3, I think it's like a good signal flag of, hey, you're actually doing pretty good.
Okay.
It's downhill from here.
Focus on cities.
But as it was stated, the thing about Scotland is at no point do they repeat anything. They do not repeat a difficulty level. They do not repeat a fear card. It always improves from every single level. Every level increases both. And like we said, Scotland has, at the moment, the most fear cards.
So
out of all the adversaries, Scotland is easily the bravest.
Which, incidentally, I do like Scotland needing the most fear, because I feel like that really lends itself to, like, the brave heart, the wild picks, the, like, we are already a, like, world of the more fantastical. I like that.
They take a lot to get scared off the island.
Right. That just seems to historically lend itself.
And that makes total sense.
Scotland the brave.
Scots!
If anyone would be touted as the bravest, the most crazy, the most resolute, I would think it would be the Scots.
You have, like, Bringer just terrifying people. The Scots are like, okay.
Nope. We're not even wearing pants. Come at me, bro.
Which, incidentally, you'd think would make them scareder.
It's all out in the open, baby.
Is that the bilge water? No, the runoff? No.
But they are just built different. No other adversary has 6 and 6 in Terror level 1 and 2. No other adversary.
Fun fact, do you know why bagpipers are always walking? Why they're always on the move?
No.
They're trying to get away from all the noise.
Do you not like bagpipes?
Well, now we're insulting their intelligence.
No, that's just
and their heritage and culture.
Just a dad joke I heard.
If any of you are Scottish,
I love you.
We have Scottish listeners. Hello.
Anyway,
hello.
What do they actually do at level 6?
Oh yeah, I didn't read that part.
we just got stuck on the fear cards.
It was so many fear cards. I'm still traumatized. The game effect is called Exports Fuel Inward Growth. After the Ravage step, add 1 town to each inland land that matches a Ravage card and is within 1 range of a building.
Stop it!
This is what this broke my back, and this was difficult for all of us.
Yes.
Where we did a good thing, the Han defended and fought everything back, the land's clear. Oh, it matches a Ravage card.
Once again, it's the add keyword. You can tell why the difficulty went from 8 to 10. Before, it was only going up by 1, from 3 to 4. Then we had a jump. Then it went from 6 to 7 to 8. Then we jumped again. After the Ravage step, you add a town to each inland land that matches a Ravage card. Do you know why this sucks? Because it happens after ravaging, but before building. Which means that if there's a town there, guess what happens when you build in a land that has a town?
A city!
Oh no!
Stop it!
Because that can happen where you can have a level 1 sands, and then you can have a level 2 sands. So say it matches, that town is added, and then it builds. Or the stage level 3 cards where 2 lands. You can have matching lands come up back to back.
Now, thankfully it says to each inland land. So this doesn't happen in the coast, which is fine because they're having extra builds on the coast anyway.
Ryan, now we have problems everywhere. Now we can't just focus on the coast.
That's the good news. The bad news is that we have them all over the
Now there's buildings everywhere!
And of course, within range 1 of a building. Not range 1 of a city, range 1 of a building.
So isolation will work here. If they're not within range, you stop the adjacency.
The really big trouble with this one is the fact that so many lands have to be clear or covered in order to stop it. And the other thing is their escalation is just giving you the finger here. I really feel as if the escalation hurts you the absolute most here at level 6. Because the escalation said on the single board that that has the most coastal buildings, you add a town to any number of lands, regardless if they're inland or coastal, to the number of lands with the fewest towns. But now, whoever that was who had that happen to them will have this one hit them exceptionally hard.
Yes.
Because now, after the Ravage step, you add, which can't be stopped, with like a disease token, for example, a town to each inland land that matches a Ravage card that's within range 1 of maybe any number of those towns that just was placed by that stupid escalation.
It was either turn 4 or 5. I wish we had taken a picture of my board. It was just covered in plastic.
It was a dumpster fire.
It was so many buildings. I'm just like, am I even playing?
I know.
Am I
Why bother defending 2 or 3 here? Why bother playing a game?
Whoop-de-doo.
How the heck? They are spitting so many buildings.
And another!
Thank the maker that this adversary doesn't have bonus health or bonus damage.
Too hard. If you're getting into double adversaries, woof, good luck.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Sarcasm. So yeah, that is Scotland. You can see now how they establish cities very easily on the coast since they start with them. However, so long as they have a city on the coast, coastal lands will have extra builds so long as those coastal lands have an adjacent city. Unfortunately, land 2 is in between 1 and 3, so this is going to happen pretty often and in your early game pretty constantly.
Oh, and explore cards add a town.
Ravage
add a town. Escalation add towns.
It's the add. It's not an action. You can't get around add. You can't stop that.
So you're thinking, you probably want a lot of destructive spirits, but wait, you need to get through so much fear, though. So like, do I do fear spirits? I like control. This gets around control. It kind of like, we're good at everything. Whatever spirits you bring, we can fight you.
It's really hard when you look at the triangle of approach. Okay, I have damage. Let me approach this foe. They got a ton of people,
You're gonna need a lot of damage.
You're gonna have a tough time. Okay, well, maybe I'm really good with fear.
I'll bring Bringer.
I'll bring fear to the table. Literally the number 1 most resolute faction in the game. Uh-oh. You're gonna have a hard time. Okay, well, maybe not so much with the fear.
Defense?
Maybe I got defense. Let's see if I... There's a billion people. Have fun with that,
Double
bro.
cities, extra towns, have fun, good luck.
And then if you want to be like, control? Yeah, sure, why not?
Have fun with those adjacency builds, yeah.
Have at it. Pick a thing, sure, have at it.
It craps on you either way.
But even with all of that being said, we were able to slog and fight, and we were actually able to beat them.
Yay!
Oh, this was a long game. It was tough.
That word slog.
Oh my gosh.
I wholeheartedly agree.
It was a mess.
This is one of those games where it's like, we're losing until we won. And we're like, hey!
It was just like,
It came out of left field. We were like, how?
we just had to focus on fear.
Fear?
Honestly, yeah.
And when we say fear, again, how many fear cards?
There were 16.
16 fear cards.
So this was a 3-player game. All of us here around this microphone were the ones that were in that game.
And it was my birthday.
It was!
It was my birthday game.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Laura's like, what do you want to do on your birthday? I'm like, let's be pragmatic. I like playing Spirit Island, but we also have to play Scotland to record. So, 2 birds, 1 stone?
Stars align. So this is a 3-player game, and I played as Downpour Drenches the World.
I played as my favorite Thunder Speaker.
I played as Fractured Days Split the Sky.
Interesting team. Downpour, Thunder Speaker, Fractured.
And now everyone at home is like, oh yeah, now I see why John's board was garbage.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't on my board.
They were on your board more than you were.
They were.
So, as we said, we had a fear victory with just 2 turns remaining.
I think that's pretty crazy.
I'm actually quite glad about that. I think we did pretty good that we only had 2 turns remaining.
Yeah, we had
as opposed to being on the final. Like, hey!
Because we had 1 card left, so we had that card. I guess it is 2 turns.
It is 2 turns, yep.
Like 1.5 turns, I
I feel like I've had closer games where it was like more down to the wire.
It
that
felt
better throughout the game. We're really doing, oh shoot, it's the last turn.
We might lose.
Because we can't like amp it up into victory fast enough.
In a game sometimes when you have a mastery over the game state. Awesome, cool. I think we actually are doing well against the threat of blight and the threat of damage.
That's how we were against France.
Oh no.
Oh.
The threat of time is now the worst. How close are they to running out of the deck? They got 3 cards left. How many fear cards do we have left? 7? Uh-oh.
Oh no, who's a fear spirit?
This game was a thinker. We had to earn this one.
Because...
Oh my goodness. We had some of the most amount of, all right, guys, let's talk.
It felt like Winnie the Pooh, the think. It felt like that. And sometimes you get to terror level 3, and you're like, oh, there's 2 cities left. I take these 2 out before the build. Bing, bang, boom, we win. We got to terror level 3, we're like, oh, we're not even close to knocking out all this cities.
There are many lots of cities.
So many cities.
And at least you have Terror 3 fear cards helping you at that point, but you don't get a whole lot of them at that point.
No, you only get 4.
No. So one thing I will say that was awesome, we had a healthy island. From start to finish.
What the
what? Baby.
We were very focused on the coast, as Ryan said.
Yep.
I think mine glided into the ocean with that special level 5 rule.
Yeah,
so,
it did.
Yeah, I think mine had the most blight on it. We get it, guys. I sucked.
Well,
on the board stage.
We're busy.
I was doing other things.
As Downpour, I'm happy to report my lands never blighted. Ironically, I actually didn't heal my starting blight. John took it because he wanted to use it for sea monsters.
I took things over.
That's totally fine. That's absolutely fine.
Sorry, Bucko.
No, dude, that's totally cool. But we had a very interesting and awesome game. Right off the bat, Isolation was fantastic. Oh my goodness, Isolation was just the bomb. I kept setting up isolates in certain lands, and thankfully with Downpour, I had access to a lot of isolates.
Of course.
Because I can repeat the card in my hand that lets me do isolate a bunch of times.
Can you, just a quick sidebar, tell listeners how you track repeats? I like what you did.
Oh, I simply used the cardboard element tokens that came with Jagged Earth, and I used those to track how many times I've done a repeat with my special rule.
Because with Downpour, it can get tricky. Like, did I already do this one? Or do I have 3 or 4?
And every now and then, John, as Fractured Days, was allowing me to repeat stuff. And so it was important for me to remember who's getting the repeat. Is this one of mine or is this one of John's? Because if it's one of mine, I gotta pay its cost again. So if I was playing with Earth maybe or something, you wouldn't have to pay its cost again, depending on its threshold. But it's important to know who's getting you that repeat so that you don't go over your limits. Because at best, Downpour can only ever get to 5 repeats. It's amazing, but you can only ever get up to 5.
Speaking of keeping track, I will pat us on the back. This is the best we've done with rules. Not that we've cheated in the past, but we were so focused. I'm only saying this because Laura's in the game.
I'll take it.
She's not even mad. She's nodding. Yep, that's fair.
I mean, did we build here? Who cares?
Maybe not. I will say I wasn't the stickler on the rules for Scotland because I didn't
me and Ryan had the adversary card right between us.
It was over on the other side of the table. I was like, can I see that? They're like, no. You're good.
No. That escalation tempted me to not follow the rules, but we had to.
We followed all the rules. Okay.
No, jokes aside, we did it to the letter.
Well, sometimes people think, does Lore cheat?
The answer is yes, but not while we're at the wheel.
See, here's the thing, though. I usually don't cheat intentionally.
Yep.
So how many times can you claim
very
that, Laura?
good at that?
Many lots.
Okay.
It is true, though. She does speak the truth.
Yes.
There are many times where she'll be like, oops, guys, sorry, I was cheating. I didn't know it. And then she'll say, this is what I did. I've been doing that this whole time. So when she says she cheats, it's just an acknowledgement of truth. It's not like malicious intent to, hey, I'm going to intentionally cheat and do it. It's usually a discovery
absent-minded, unaware of the rules. Very
is she
bad
guilty?
at remembering rules.
You decide. Anyway, so...
To start the game, I want to talk about my deck of Days That Never Were. You get your 4 cards of either one. This was, I think, the best pull I've ever had. Here are my 4 majors. Unrelenting Growth.
Oh, yes!
Tsunami. Sea Monsters. And Entwined Power.
Oh.
So 2 coastal focusing cards. Unrelenting Growth.
Yeah.
Double Growth, which is insane. Which I focused
Unrelenting
on
Growth is probably one of my favorite cards of all time.
Really?
Yep. You know me, I love getting presents out there.
You
I'm
do.
addicted to that.
I mean, my minors weren't as good, but when I looked at my majors deck, the Days That Never Were, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be good for other spirits.
So, as Downpour, I had to make sacred sites everywhere.
You were making the tallest sacred sites.
I had to make them all over the place. Thankfully, whenever Downpour makes a sacred site, it also makes a land that it's in a wetland. That is incredibly crucial to their gameplay because so many of their cards are in a better state, like an upgraded state,
right,
when the land comes from or happens in a wetland. However, it was incredibly important for me to keep my lands defended and clear, though, because I, had so many cards that are range 0 that I need these lands to stay wetlands. So, I'll get into why I really needed that, but suffice it to say, I needed wetlands everywhere for my powers to work. So, I needed sacred sites everywhere, but I also needed to defend them. Yeah. You see, it's one thing to have sacred sites everywhere, it's another thing to have sacred sites and just keep them there. Mm-hmm. So, my MVP cards, honestly, were my starting hand.
Really?
Unbearable Deluge was phenomenal. I copied that one multiple times throughout the game in multiple lands.
What's that card do?
This is your go-to defend card. The defend card that has the most oomph. In a land that you are in, i.e. range 0, 1 fear. Push 2 Dahan, defend 3. If the target land is wetland, then isolate it.
Nice.
Thankfully, this card can go in any land, and since it's a defend card, obviously it's fast. But defend 3. The thing that is unfortunate, though, is that you have to get the Dahan out of there. You get great defense for 0 cost. And the thing that's so great about that is when you repeat cards as Downpour, you must repeat them by paying their cost. Since it's 0, you have to spend 0.
Nice.
This is a wonderful candidate for repeating powers. This is your only card in your hand that starts at 0. I really love finding 0 costing cards for Downpour for the purposes of repeating them.
Yep.
But you get to defend and isolate a land so long as it's one of your sacred sites.
Because it's a range 0 card, you probably are making a sacred site there.
Right.
So it probably is a wetland.
Right. So, the thing that was unfortunate is that I like having Dahan in lands to counterattack, but since Downpour will actually reduce the amount of counterattack damage they deal, I actually sent my Dahan to Laura's board because she was Thunder Speaker.
It was so nice.
So it was actually quite handy.
Right over.
Yep. So I'm like, you know what? I am actually capable of using Dahan, but just not as efficiently as you can. And we could really benefit from Laura having so many Dahan on the coast.
I forgot about that.
So that's where I sent them.
I forgot about that, Ryan.
So nice.
That's such a good point because I think this might have been one of the friendliest Thunder Speaker games because I forgot you were doing that. You were pushing Dahan towards Laura.
I just gave her bucket loads of Dahan.
So many.
And then obviously people know as Fracture Days, I can make Dahan.
Consistent Dahan spawning characters with Blur the Arc of Years.
Blur the Arc of Years. It's a fast power. If no Dahan or invaders are present, remove a blight, which is always nice. If invaders are present, they build and ravage. Not so good. But if Dahan are present, add 1 and then push up to 2.
Yep.
So guess who is adding Dahan? And then, oh, by the way, I can push them once I've made them.
So both John and I, as Fracture and Downpour, were just funneling Dahan to Laura's board, and it was fantastic.
I think it was the biggest army I've ever seen for Thunder Speaker.
It was awesome.
We did have the one Rituals of Terror where we grouped up 10.
Sure, but
that was just like a scenario.
That's a symptom of the actual gameplay, because that's your literal objective.
Right.
So, Unbearable Deluge combined with Rain and Mud Suppress Conflict, your first left innate, I was able to stack so much defense.
Yes.
That's just Downpour 101. Unbearable Deluge, Rain and Mud Suppress Conflict. Because that innate allows you to get up to 2 defense per presence you have in a land. Ooh. So in a sacred site, bam, right there, you have 4 defense. And that's for all of your presence. So that is how you get to the ridiculous amount of flexible, high amounts of defense. Because the card Unbearable Deluge defends 3 if you play it once, and it's 0 energy. So if I have level 2 of the innate, and I have this card played once, and it's a sacred site, that's already defense 7 with 1 card. Repeat it a single time, defend 10.
So they're the best defensive spirits.
Repeat it 3 times, I can do it in another spot. Defend 10 in 2 lands. And this amount of easily accessible high defense was amazing, considering I had a buddy on my team that was letting me fetch my cards back.
Hey.
This was so Nice.
I want to say, I think the reason we didn't blight out, obviously Laura was destroying a lot, but my board was looking pretty rough.
Yep.
Ryan, you defending so much and you having a clean board helped us, because I did look at the card after we were cleaning up. It was downward spiral. So we would have looked for Laura to lose presence, which is her ammo, for you to lose presence, which is defense, and for me to lose presence, who's not on the island.
That would be bad.
It might have
been really
I
bad.
think it would have
That would've
lost
been
us the
bad.
game had we flipped.
There were a few times where we were like, oh no, we're getting a lot of blight out there.
It was me.
It was getting
Laura's
dicey.
looking at me. It was my board. I get it.
Right. So we'll get into this in about 5 minutes here, but one thing that was really interesting was explorers specifically tended to linger in my lands while the buildings got wrecked. So ironically, having a buildup of explorers was actually starting to become an issue. Dahan could have picked them off for me, but I gave most of them to Thunderspeaker, and I'm totally...
It was worth it.
Yes. Glad I did so,
Yeah.
because it was worth it. We'll get into that in a minute. Why were buildings not so much a problem? Foundations sink into mud.
Who needs a major when you have that card?
Oh my word. This card was amazing. This was my nuke. This was my go-to attack card each reclaim cycle. Doing it 3 times can cleanse a land of all buildings.
All of them?
Yes.
But there's 17 buildings in that land.
Say again, how many?
Foundations Sink into Mud is a 1 costing slow power in a land that you are in, do 2 damage to towns.
Yeah, that doesn't take out everything.
Or, if target land is a wetland, you may instead deal 1 damage to each building.
Whoa.
Do 1 damage to each building and do that card 3 times. Play it once naturally, repeat it twice, every building dead. This card was phenomenal. It does cost 1, but it basically is a major at that point.
A cheap major.
Right, because sure, you have to spend 3 energy to make it happen, but when you think about what you can do with that, I think 3 energy is actually a pretty good price.
It's basically Jungle Hungers, but better, because they can take out cities.
And for me, targeting buildings with this power consistently, Foundation Sink into Mud, was critically important for contesting their level 6 ability, because they were adding so many towns. But every time that I did this twice, all the towns are dead. And if I did 3 times, all their cities are dead.
Because this was a slow power that happened after the Ravage action.
Right. So I have good news and bad news.
Oh.
Good news, I did this a lot.
We needed
and
it.
got a ton of fear. Bad news, it was dramatically needed and I had to do it constantly. Thankfully, I had a buddy that would allow me to reclaim cards.
Yes.
So I could keep doing it over and over again, here and there. So both innates that Downpour has, water nourishes life's growth and rain and mud suppress conflict, were also absolutely critical. The reason why is because one of them gave me the ability to get rid of blight, which usually Downpour does. I actually never removed a blight because all the blight I would have gotten rid of, John borrowed.
Yep.
Instead, it was so incredibly important for me to have energy. I gassed myself pretty much every single turn.
Yeah.
It was very common for me to just bankrupt myself every single turn. That's why I never went for majors. I honestly never did. I stuck with minors and my base hand because I had to just be pouring myself. I was stretched as thin as I possibly could while also being awesome.
I think that's a viable strategy, especially with Downpour, because you can make a simple 0 costing minor or 1 costing minor power a major. Because you repeat it 5 times, any power becomes a major power.
And Rain and Mud Suppress Conflict was absolutely critical, both for the defense that it gives in the early and mid game and in the damage it can do in the late game.
Ooh.
A little more on that in a little bit. So the very first card I picked up was probably one of the best cards I could have found. I found Sucking Ooze. This card, I think, was made for Downpour. It is a fast power. It gives you a needed earth element and a water element, and it's 0. Remember what I said about cards that are 0 cost?
So when you repeat them,
yes,
they're free.
Thankfully, this one is range 1, and it has to be in a specific land. It has to be in a sand or a wetland. Usually that means 50% of the board, just in general. You can't go to jungles, you can't go to mountains. Thankfully though, for me, I can make wetlands.
I think most of your board were wetlands. I'm not even joking.
Pretty much. I think
Out of
2.
your 8 lands,
I think 2 weren't.
Yeah, 6.
Honestly,
yeah.
I think 2 weren't. I have the picture. I can look it up. I was moving presents around so much that it's more of like an on average thing.
Okay.
Looking at the picture at game end, I was right. It was 2. 2 lands on my board that weren't wetlands. But the thing is throughout the game, I would move over here, move over there.
Yeah.
So which lands were wetlands would actually
The
change.
storm was moving
Right.
across the islands.
But point being, Sucking Ooze usually could only go to 50% of the board. Here, though, I could use it wherever I wanted. Because, bam, look at my growth tracks. I have moving presence options.
All over
I
the
can
place.
just make one,
Yeah.
and now Sucking Ooze is legal.
During the growth, you can just make one.
And what does Sucking Ooze do? 2 fear. If invaders are present, isolate target land. Well, I think invaders are gonna be present on this board. They were all over the place. So that was constant. But the thing is I spammed this card for isolation and fear. Like I said, bad guys were everywhere, so that conditionary effect was constant. But the fear was great. How many times was I like, you know what? 6 fear, 10 fear, 8 fear this turn from this one card. It was incredibly good for the isolation. It was one of the ways I was able to get isolation out there.
Yes.
Along with Dark Skies, Loose a Stinging Rain, which also has the capacity to isolate. But the thing that was so great though is that this one was free.
Yeah.
And it gave me fear.
So I've seen this discussion or talked about in BGG, Reddit, Discord, where people are talking about top fear spirits, and we were just kind of talking about in general with our All-Star series. Here's what has been interesting. This is the chatter I've been hearing, or I've been noticing. Downpour, one of the top fear spirits.
Oh yeah, easy.
So
Easy.
many minor powers, Ryan. You said
Seriously.
you focus on your
Yep.
minor powers when you play
Yep.
Downpour. So many minor
Right.
powers have fear. 2
Right.
fear, 3 fear.
If you find Land of Haunts and Embers, if you find Rain of Blood, oh my gosh.
or Sucking Ooze. If you
Right.
find these cards,
Right.
it doesn't say they generate a lot of fear and they're some of your powers, but in our 3-player game, Ryan was our fear spirit.
The asterisk that's awesome about Downpour is that one of the things that they're strong with is any minor power card that's 0 that you could spam with ease. And even if it's not a 0 costing power card, even in your late game,
even if it's
you
1.
can take a minor power, replay it literally 5 times. Sure, that's 6 energy if the card, for example, paid 1.
Yeah.
But depending on what you're doing, that could be ridiculously lethal.
Oh, it's a major
Yeah.
power.
So the funny thing is that card is never looked at as like a serious fear card usually, but you can, as Downpour, make it into an insane fear card. Now I might get some heat for this next thing, but I don't care.
Uh-oh.
I found growth through sacrifice. And yes, I took it.
If it's a playable card, it's in the game, we can take it. I played Unrelenting Growth.
This
Sue
was
me.
It's making more and more sense to me why everybody hates it and you guys are wrong.
Oh,
so
Laura.
literally the first time in my entire life I have ever
Yeah.
used this card.
I've seen you pass it
I
up.
have literally never used this card because everyone jumps on you when you use this card. It's a fantastic card, and the reason why everyone gets mad at people who use it, generally to kind of cut through the sarcastic comedy here, is it's just simply a card that gives a lot of very good value to the player without costing a whole lot.
Yeah.
But the thing is have you seen Scotland 6? They're pretty hard, and I only ever used it a grand total of 3 times. I don't think that's like too crazy. I didn't go crazy with it. In essence, for the sake of brevity, this card allows you to get, for no energy cost, another presence out there. It's awesome.
You still
It's
lose
great.
a presence.
The cost is you have to lose a presence. Yes, you give up a presence, but you can get another presence out there. So at first you're like, wait, destroy a presence? That sounds bad. You could honestly have 9 presents destroyed in a game and you still have 5 presents out there. You're
How
good.
much we both, or at least me, have changed on like losing presents. It's just like, water.
But
off
I'm
my back.
Downpour. I can get it back.
From abundance.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So anyway, one thing that was so great though was John was able to use Unrelenting Growth on me very early. So I
It was
was
my
able
first
to
card
get
I pulled from Days That Never Won.
Yep. Oh, it was fantastic. Anyway, so I did have Growth Through Sacrifice. Yes, sue me. I had a very fun combo with Unbearable Deluge, which is the defend card that we talked about, and Dark Skies Loose a Stinging Rain. That card is yet another one of Downpour's starting cards. It does cost 1 energy, but if you are within range 1 of a wetland,
Pick a land.
Isolate target land. Then you may push up to 1 Explorer and up to 2 Dahan. This was one of my go-to cards for getting Laura the Dahan that she needed. However, this was pretty fun. I had to get silly with some of my card plays and when I played them.
I do remember this
Why?
dance. Yes.
The thing that was funny is, if you remember, Unbearable Deluge moves Dahan before the defense comes in, which means that if you wanted to counterattack with Dahan and you played that card, the Dahan move away because it's raining too hard. What I would do is I would move Dahan away with Unbearable Deluge to then immediately bring them back by playing Dark Skies, Loose Stinging Rain.
Were we just here?
In that adjacent land that they moved to. Get back in there!
What a fun dance. I mean, you have to think out of the box sometimes against level 6 adversaries.
We had to make it work.
You gotta make it work.
We had to do it.
You gotta do
we
it.
had to do it.
You have to not bend the rules, but just like find maneuvers around certain things.
Yep. So, like I said, I was stretched for energy pretty much the entire game. I couldn't go for majors, which was fine, since I was able to break even every single turn with all the repeats of minor powers that I was playing.
Yes.
I was actually able to get fully upgraded due to both unrelenting growth and growth through sacrifice. And a fully upgraded Downpour is a strong spirit.
It's a lot of deluge.
Fractured support was amazing and cannot be ignored, particularly the card play. Fractured over here was giving me 1 additional card play without me paying its cost. What I would do is all the time I would leave a 0 costing card not played. And if you notice, Downpour actually doesn't have great card play. Takes them a while to get to 2, and it takes them even longer to get to 3.
But you're repeating, so technically you're playing cards or like powers.
You're repeating, but the thing is since you are repeating, that means you're kind of locked into that one card a bunch of times.
Sure.
So to get a variety of different cards, you're only ever able to get 3. But since you're allowing me to play a card by paying its cost, I can essentially get a 4th. This was huge for my elements. It was huge for getting multiple selections of repeats out there. And Fractured Days playing The Past Returns Again was incredibly helpful, especially for avoiding those stupid escalations.
Because I did manipulate the Invader deck. I already hear people saying like, you can't use Visions of Shifting Future because it says there, look at the top card of either the Invader deck or the Event deck, return it, then shuffle the deck's top 2 cards. But the next tier says, instead of returning and shuffling, you may put that card you looked at the bottom of its deck. But you may not do this if cards are specifically placed during setup, which is all Scotland does. They specifically place cards in their setup because you have to build their deck and move stage 2 cards and Coastal Land stage 3. But, however, The Past Returns Again doesn't say that. You can you just swap the top card of the Invader deck with a card in the Invader discard pile within 1 Invader stage of it.
Yep, so that means you can replace a 2 with a 1 or a 3 with a 2,
because
but never a 3 with a 1.
I know that is something that people think they can do with the innate, but it says if it is specifically designed to do something, you can't, which is fine.
Yeah, it's balanced.
It is balanced, and it's nice you have a card that can do it.
So remember how we were talking to you all about how annoying it was to have escalation, stage 3, coastal lands, escalation. We were able to stall some of those, and we were able to have the choice. Would we rather them go to 2 lands or escalate again? Or, for that one time, let's just do another stage 1.
Yeah, that was really nice. Unfortunately, sometimes I don't play perfectly. Most times. We got coastal lands. I was like trying to plan it so we can...
Fine.
I missed the coast. I didn't forget that one or move that one away.
Right, no, it's okay. It's one of those things where whenever you get out of an escalation, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Trust me, that escalation was hurting you more than anyone else.
It's one of those...
So stopping that is quite useful.
It's one of those things, too, where you can have this game plan of Spirit Island. Like, on turn 3, I'm going to play this card, and I'm going to grow here, and I'm going to use this growth option, and I'm going to gain this much energy. And then you play the game.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm going to save the Past Returns Again for the coastal land. And then you play the game, like, the escalations, you can get rid of that. And it's funny how the game really takes your plans and throws it out the window, especially against level 6.
It does, because so many different things can affect it, and then even what your teammates do, and everything.
So many variables.
Thinking on your feet all the time, especially with a difficult spirit.
Let's talk about Thunderspeaker. It is true that Downpour got some really good fear gains, but Thunderspeaker raked it in.
It's the best Thunderspeaker game I've seen.
Both Thunderspeaker and Downpour this game just raked in the fear. It was insane How many times did we see a manifestation of power and glory just decimate multiple buildings? And I don't mean like just 2 or 3, but I mean like, and there's 3 towns and 2 cities, even more than that sometimes.
Especially
like,
those extra Dahan you were sending or I was creating.
Right. And it was like, and there's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9 fear. Oh, and a bunch of like change for explorers.
It's worth it.
Oh, remember those extra Dahan that we were talking about? The ones that John was spawning and sending to Laura's board? Oh, and the ones that I took from my board and sent to Laura's board? Well, guess what? It's true that I could have used them, but the thing is I can nuke buildings. If I had Dahan, I can get rid of my explorers. I thought it was significantly more efficient for us to just load Laura up with all the Dahan, and I'll just worry about buildings. I'll cross the bridge of the explorer problem later because I can nuke the bad guy buildings with Foundation Sink into Mud, and she was just nuking bad guys.
Laura, tell us about Thunderspeaker. You are our Thunderspeaker player.
Well, I was spread a little bit thin because I was trying to take care of my board, but also John's board.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
You're
keep rubbing that
welcome.
in. Thank you.
Well,
in all seriousness,
somebody
though,
had to get over
Fractured
there and help
usually
you.
does need help
Yeah.
on their board.
Right, like you were helping both of us out growing so much.
Seriously.
That it was like, okay, I felt like whenever they were ravaging, I'm like, all right, I got 4 areas that I'm trying to defend or ravage. And then you were able to help defend and Ryan was able to help defend. But it was kind of cool. I ended up with my army split across both boards, trying to do Manifestation of Power and Glory as often as I could.
Yeah.
What was really interesting was to see which cheat codes John was giving to which spirits and how they were helpful. For me, it was the extra card play, the repeats, and the reclaim. For Laura, it was more the play something fast and reclaim.
Yes, a lot of playing things fast. There are a couple of times we were able to play Manifestation of Power and Glory in the fast phase.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
And just get in there and nuke something before they were able
And
to
for
get
me,
us.
it actually wasn't so good because it doesn't change the card to fast. It says you may resolve a slow power now.
Correct.
Why is that important? It's because the base card still doesn't change.
So if you
if
repeat it.
I repeated it, it's still slow. When John would ask, hey, who needs it? I'm like, give it to her.
Yes.
I don't need it. I actually don't. She benefits from it much better. But when it came to card play, I'm like, I need it. Like,
Give it
or
to
a
me.
repeat. Yeah.
One thing I have critiqued as a spirit of Thunderspeaker, or criticisms I've said, is usually you get into this death ball, but you're only in one spot, one land.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I'm saying that, I'm just internalizing how poorly I play Thunderspeaker.
Right.
When seeing Laura play and how you were able to spread out across the island and you were taking that criticism and just throwing it under the rug because you were able to, like we've stated, handle multiple lands, multiple boards, and spread out. And you were stretched a bit thin, like you said, but you were able to hit hard in more than just one spot. And it was cool to see because I felt like I was learning, like when we watched Ryan play Sharp Fangs, I felt like I was like, oh, this is how you do that. And this is how you save so Dahan don't die, so you don't die. And this is how you group people up. It was really cool to watch.
Aw,
But the
thank
cool
you.
thing, though, also was the team aspect of logistically moving Dahan. Every single time that John and I had a Dahan moving thing, we would honestly ask Laura, hey, this is how far I can move them. This is how many. Where would you like us to put them?
Oh, yeah, constantly.
We just let her be the air traffic controller.
Yep.
In this case, it was ground traffic control, and just completely move like, hey, I have the capability to move some peeps. Where do you want them? Go that way.
I
Cool.
feel like I'm setting up over here. Can you dump anything in this
Well,
spot?
tell us how you were able to defend with Dahan.
So I picked up Domesticated Animals Go Berserk,
Honestly, one of my favorite Jagged Earth cards.
which gives you a fear and gives you defend 5. Now you have to be range 0, but the nice thing about Thunderspeaker is that they tend to travel with the Dahan.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, oh, I need to be there. Oh, well, let me just scoot one little dude in there, and I'm there.
It was cool seeing both you so mobile, both Downpour and
Incredibly
Thunderspeaker.
useful.
Yes.
How many times are we going to talk about how good Domesticated Animals Go Berserk?
It does seem like it comes up almost every episode. We always try and pull it.
It's
if we
almost
see
as
it.
if Thunderspeaker can go through the power deck pretty quick.
That's true.
Hey,
Gain 2
hey,
power
hey.
cards.
And it's also as if that card is amazing.
Then I also had Words of Warning.
Mm-hmm.
So just, defending 3, which turns out to be not as much defense as you often need with Scotland, especially where the towns are piling up, but hey. And then I picked up Call to Guard, which I really love because it has my elements that I need with the sun and the air.
Mm-hmm.
So you can gather up to 1 Dahan, then if Dahan are present, defend 1 per Dahan, which when you're tromping your little army around, those times when I couldn't play Manifestation Station of Power and Glory fast. Like, you're able to defend, which was great.
I think this was game-changing, and also how we weren't blighting as much as typically you would expect in a tough game like this, because obviously you were being so defensive, and then Laura was grouping people up, and oh, by the way, each one of these Dahan, these 8 Dahan that she has, now it's defend 8. That's huge. That's a huge card.
Huge.
If you can defend the Dahan army, they will fight back and destroy everything in that space, so you don't have to defend it again.
One comedic detail about domesticated animals goes berserk. It requires the player to play that card in a land that has buildings in it. Oh, we're fine.
We're the Scots.
There were buildings everywhere.
The field animals are not going berserk. The domesticated animals are.
That's right.
It's a ram. I pet a lamb today, by
Aw.
the way.
You did?
We did. They had a
You were
lamb.
at a petting zoo?
No, they brought a lamb to school. We walked out back, and there's a lamb. His
You
name
didn't
was
tell me
Polar.
this. We don't talk
And he chased
anymore.
one of my students. It was really funny.
Laura's a teacher, by the way, in case you forgot, or you just never
Why are
knew.
you always around children?
But
The biggest butt ever!
So I made the joke several times throughout the night of like, man, if only I had wrapped in wings of sunlight, I could air fly it over there. I wish I had wrapped in wings of sunlight. And then after I pulled it out of my sleeve, I found
Wrapped
You cheated! I know you
Wings
cheated! I know you did the poker cheat! She does the poker
sunlight. She found it wrapped in wings of sunlight.
I've never seen
my God.
such jubilee in a Spirit Island game. Because it was just like...
It was like
My
mid-game. We were
Mid-game.
like, oh no, this place has gone to garbage. I think at one point we were like, I could defend for you, but I can't get over there in time. And I had just said, I'd pulled my 4 cards and been like, man, I wish I got wrapped in wings of sunlight.
So, to those of you who don't know, there are many cards in the deck that certain spirits really want to find because they gel with that card so well that it's like almost game over.
Every element.
If you have it. Like, if Spreading Rot gets Walls of Rock and Thorn, GG. If Ocean gets Tsunami, GG.
If Green gets Jungle
Hungers,
Hungers...
GG. But if Thunder Speaker gets Wrapped in Wings of Sunlight,
I felt the whole room exhale, be like, oh, okay.
Yes,
We
it's
have a
the same
chance.
amount
After
of
we all
catharsis
screeched.
that you get if River finds Cleansing Floods or
it's just
something like that. Yeah.
Ooh, maybe we have a chance.
yes.
Because we were way down in the fear. We need so many more fear cards.
Right.
But it did feel like we have a fighting chance.
Once she got this card, Thunder Speaker went on killing sprees.
When we say
Oh,
airlift.
it was ridiculous.
Wait, oh yeah, read the card.
Okay, so Wrapped in Wings of Sunlight, it costs 3, it's a fast one, range 0. Move up to 5 Dahan from target land to any land.
What?
Any land.
What? What do you,
You
find
can
her?
literally teleport him.
6 boards away if you want. Any. Defend 5 in that land, and if you max out on the elements, which if you're Thunder Speaker, you're gonna be dumb if you don't,
Oh, dang.
it's first gather up to 3 Dahan.
Oh.
So you can move your people around, you can bring your 5 with
But
you.
hey,
and
guess what? You can move with them.
so you can take an army of 25 damage
Range 0? Oh no.
from one side of the board to the other side to not only hit something hard, but then get ready to scoot into the next land. Like,
Because you have a friend that lets you reclaim the card.
It
so
was
let's go
amazing.
and do it again.
Oh, yeah.
And then once I hit my own reclaim one, John's letting me reclaim, I'm reclaiming, we're like getting Wrapped in Wings of Sunlight, and
Oh.
As a Fractured player and as someone who played Fractured in this game, I will say your growth phase, you need to wait and see what you guys do.
Yeah.
Ryan would say to me, hey, John,
I
can
need
you-
another card play this turn.
John, can I have another
Badly.
card play? Laura, can you make me fast? John, I need to reclaim this card so I don't have to do my reclaim option through my
Right.
growth.
yeah.
Right.
So then I hear that and be like, okay, I need to do growth 2 and get sun so I can
Right.
trigger this, or I need
Right.
to play these cards.
It's like when you play Overcooked and an order comes in and you have to, like, as a chef, put into your recipe what kind of thing do I need to do.
Yeah.
I need growth 2
love
here.
it's a
my
fun game.
favorite game.
Well, my
It's so
point
fun.
being, hey guys, what do you need? I need this. All right, do you need anything? Bro, honestly, I'm good. Help her. Cool. Laura, what do you need?
Focus on Laura.
I need this. Cool. You can do that.
It is, Ryan, that is a perfect analogy. We're
Yeah.
waiting for someone's order because it's not like I just can't do my own thing and bottle up. I need to be in
Right.
constant communication
Right.
with the entire island. Be like, who needs what? How can I help? Because that's basically all I'm doing.
That's where Fractured truly excels, in my opinion, when you, the players, are communicating the needs that everyone's going to have.
And that is something we did very well. So thank you for telling me your needs, because then I always be like, oh, I'll do growth 3, I'll get a sun, or I'll reclaim, I'll get that air, so I can trigger the second tier of slip the flow. It was just like, everything was just clicking, and I'd be like, okay, I need lettuce, I need meat, I need cheese. I just all made sense.
Yep. Right. Now, we always talk about how utility and various utility-based powers can be hard to quantify as to what they actually do on the board. But the thing that's really cool is, in this instance, how does letting Thunderspeaker play Wraps and Wings of Sunlight more often, consistently from turn to turn
Does that help?
Does that help?
How about Downpour getting an extra card play when they struggle just to get to 2 card plays? Does that help?
Does that help?
At all?
Yes. So we did get the fear card, Immigration Slows, and we got it at level 2. Big whoop. That's 6 cards within Terror 2. This is the one where invaders skip the next normal build and the card stays put. This was actually huge because it bought us some time to really hit them hard. And boy, did we. Oh, it was great. This is where we were doing the Wraps and Wings of Sunlight attacks. This is where I was doing some Foundation, Sink into Mud. Like you said, Manifestation, Power, and Glory. Thunderspeaker's big late game kapow was the Wraps and Wings of Sunlight. For Downpour, my biggest late game push was getting a maximum level Rain and Mud Suppress Conflict. This, at maximum levels, because I was fully upgraded, was able to reduce bad guy health by 1. This meant that when I was using Foundation Sink into Mud, I only needed to play it twice to nuke all buildings instead of playing it 3 times. So if I play that card 4 times, once naturally, repeated 3 times, I can clear 2 lands of every single building. When you think about the fact that we had Manifestations of Power and Glory and Wraps and Wings of Sunlight happening, each of those cards, that's 2 cards, so those like 2 lands getting completely nuked in the late game. And for me to be completely nuking 2 lands of buildings.
Ridiculous.
It was phenomenal. Reducing the bad guy health by 1 is huge! Because Foundation Sink into Mud gets so much more efficient with its replays. Foundation Sink into Mud is basically just Jungle Hungers on speed dial.
Yeah.
Kinda. Because you start with it, and it's cheaper. No, it doesn't kill all explorers, but it can kill all the buildings. It can kill way more cities. So it's funny because Jungle Hungers is better for towns and explorers, and Foundation Sink into Mud is better for towns and cities. So the best thing is if you can honestly have both. But
but you can't.
Like I said,
it's broken.
Basically, you get the idea of what I was saying. It's kind of like Jungle Hungers on speed dial. Oh my word. Once we had that capability secured, that is when I was like, hey, we might actually have something here, y'all.
We might have a chance. I want to do a quick little analysis of Fractured. I know this is a scary spirit.
Yes, let's talk about Fractured.
And
it's terrifying. I know.
And Laura, you've stated on the podcast of having a panic attack while trying to play it. And
not to make light of anybody's actual panic attacks.
Right.
It is a difficult spirit, is high complexity. You're not dealing with a lot on the island. Ryan, I actually learned something from you playing Sharp Fangs, how to play Fractured. Similar to you doing this aggressive build where you have 3 presents on the island, that's it.
Oh.
That is what I did. 3 to 4. If we ever were close to blighting, I'm like, just in case tipping point, maybe 4 presents.
Right.
I need my time.
Seriously, you had so much time.
I need time because I don't know. I think sometimes I say wildish things or I am very reactive. Slip the Flow of Time, the left innate, might be one of the strongest, if not the strongest innate in the game. Because, like you said, it's hard to quantify what good can come from it.
Right.
So if I am letting someone play a slow power fast every single turn, that's insane. If I'm letting you play an extra card and you're repeating it a bunch, that's insane. Okay. You play a card, then you can reclaim it.
Yep.
And then you play a card from your hand, then you're getting to repeat powers.
Yes.
And then if I am playing with green, you can repeat Gift of Proliferation.
Oh.
And then you are, manipulating the deck. I will say, Fractured is a unique spirit where sometimes you can just spam energy. Instead of doing gain 1 time times 3, gain 2 energy times 3.
Right. You can spam your own energy acquisition. You can even spam your own card play up to 7.
I don't think people should forget about that. Yes, Ryan, growth 2. You can times 2 gain 1 time, which is fine. Usually I did growth 3 if I wanted to gain a lot of time. But you could do plus 2 card plays times 2.
Yeah.
So like Ryan said, you can play 7 cards, and then you're triggering every level of your innates, and then you have all this time saved up. So if you're playing Fractured, you don't want to be on the island. You want to have a good partner, like I did. I had such good partners who were able to handle their boards and then help me out with mine. But you need to focus on team boosting. You do not need to worry about the island. And 3 to 4 presents on the island, that's it. Use it for time.
I then have a question. How does that work if you are playing solo? Or is this a spirit that is effective solo?
So if you're playing solo, any spirit is possible solo, because I think what helps with Fractured is because of Days That Never Were deck. You start with an extra deck. You can, whenever you gain cards, you keep one, and then you put another one in that Days That Never Were. So you could basically keep 2 cards whenever you want and be like, I need damage, I need defense. So you can go through the minor major power deck, pick one, and if you need to pick a second one that has more of your elements, you pick that one too. So it is possible. I'm not saying it is the best solo spirit. I think there's Green, Lure. I think there's stronger standout solo spirits, but it is possible. Obviously, the spirit is built to support others.
And Port Time Sideways comes completely obsolete in solo. To those of you who are wondering.
It's like move one of your presents to a different land with your presence. On the board, move from. So you're basically jumping boards.
Okay.
But there's only one board in solo. True solo.
Right.
So
and then
Ryan's right. It comes
on the board, move from, do 1 less action. On the board, move to, 1 more action.
Wait. It negates.
+1 minus. Oh,
yeah,
it's a wash.
It's a wash. But it is a lot of reading when you're looking at Fractured's board. And if you are able to read, be like, oh, I get an extra card play here. Or I get extra time here. You just need to be thorough with this. And you need to ask others, like I was saying. Ryan, what do you need? Laura, would you need something fast? Okay, I'll go for air elements. Okay, I'll go for moon elements here.
In truth, how in the world did we have a healthy island when John's board was so ridiculously cluttered?
I had the most blight.
Because the escalation effect was always against John, and he blighted a good deal. I never blighted. I think Laura blighted just a few times.
Once. Both of you barely blighted.
I mean, Thunder Speaker is like, at any cost, please do not, because we just don't want to get hurt.
That's true. You don't want to lose Dahan or Presence.
But it was true that you blighted a few times. But how in the world, with all that plastic, did we not? Honestly, in the end game, Laura coming in with all the teleporting Dahan just wrecking house.
Yes.
That was the most, fruitful crop of bad guys just waiting to get cut by the Reaper Sickle. And in this case, the Reaper Sickle was flying Dahan, just coming in and just shredding.
It kind of felt like Finder was in the game. Like, all of a sudden, this army of Dahan is just teleported to his hands.
Yes. And for me, I was able to hold my own board pretty much by doing ridiculous defense. We're talking I had to get mathy with exact, precise, how much damage do they have coming in? They have 10? Do at least 9. I got 9. Cool, moving on. Because I can't waste a single card.
No.
I had to defend every single sacred site.
And you couldn't waste a single repeat.
No.
Everything had to be so precise.
Right, and if I lost a sacred site, then that means it's no longer a wetland.
That means
and if it's no longer a wetland, my cards get significantly worse. Or they just can't work in that land anymore. Which is critical.
We're talking about cards that change the game. Sucking Ooze, Wrapped in Wings of Sunlight. I picked up a minor. Gift of Twinned Days. It is basically made for Fractured. You get a sun element, you get a moon element. It's a fast power. Once this turn, target spirit may repeat the lowest cost power card they have in play by paying its cost again. You may do likewise.
Yes.
Wait a second. You guys are both repeating? Laura only has 3 costing cards of Wrapped in Wings of Sunlight and Manifestation, Power, and Glory. I guess she's playing that twice.
We found ourselves a loop, y'all.
So we had some good card pulls.
We had some great card pulls. At the very end of the game, I did find Quicken the Earth Struggles. I never got to use it, but oh my word, that card was made for Downpour. Not in the elements, but in the effect. That's one that we'll have to log away into our analysis of each spirit for being a fantastic card, because it's a card that is famous for its defend 10. Or, if you choose so, you may do 1 damage to each building, which is what a upgraded Foundation Sink in the Mud does anyway. But this card is cheap at 1, but it has to be range 0 and a sacred site. But that's fine, because as Downpour, you're going to have sacred sites all over the place. And range 0 sacred site, that's fine. I'm already there.
You're mobile.
So Downpour is already a sacred site user. Defending 10 is a lot for the price of 1, which is great for them since they have defense as a part of their thing.
Oh,
Anywho,
you can repeat that power.
Right, and it also enables you to not reduce Dahan counterattack, depending on a few factors, of course. You want to be careful of that always. But the choice to do 1 damage to each building just clicks so well already with some of your capabilities as we've described that you can see how it just clicks in so well. Ironically, this is one of those cards that for elements, not great. Only gives you an earth. That's the only one you need. For the effect,
huge.
It's perfect.
I have a question for the room. We have now defeated Scotland at their highest difficulty. And it was a slog, like Ryan said, and we were 2 turns barely skating by victory. A fear victory, by the way, which is difficult. 16 cards.
fear cards.
What are y'all's thoughts about Scotland? And say someone doesn't want to play Fractured or Downpour, like just an overall tactics. What do you guys think is the best thing to do versus Adversary?
Overall, I really, and I mean really liked Isolation out there because that really thwarted their level 3 ability with Chart the Coastline. That's the one that build cards affect lands without invaders so long as there's an adjacent city.
Yeah.
But isolating that meant that I could be like, nope, not adjacent. You're not getting those extra builds in the coast.
So that empty land stays empty.
Also, stopping their level 1 was incredibly helpful. Isolating the coasts kept them from putting towns on the coastal lands, which was great. So stopping those extra builds and those extra free coastal towns of theirs was insane. I thought that was incredibly helpful.
Yes.
For us, for me, especially focusing on killing the buildings was really good. Now, the thing is I had access to damage all invaders. Not technically all invaders. In this case, I'm focusing on the buildings because Foundation Sink in the Mud could kill the buildings.
But buildings is the lost condition.
But the thing is buildings is a lost condition. Their escalation is putting towns.
Yeah.
Their level 6 ability is spitting towns. They are adding buildings a lot. And so being able to kill buildings with an ability that I could repeat that is targeting buildings was phenomenal. I think getting Badlands out there to get bonus damage for all these buildings would be really good.
Especially in the early game where maybe you're not strong yet.
Yep.
You can spit out Badlands and get rid of those cities or extra towns that they add.
Yep.
That's huge.
Simply put, Thunder Speaker is really great because this is simply a character who is very pugilistic, is a range 0 aficionado, and can deal heavy damage. Most of the time, the damage that you can actually achieve isn't really necessary all the time. Here, though, this is an adversary where it is really nice.
It's extremely necessary.
It's extremely necessary.
You're right. Sometimes Thunder Speaker isn't efficient. Here, we need all that extra damage.
All that efficiency. So being able to move bad guys was also really good. Remember how at the beginning I said that since they put a town when they explore on the coast, moving that town immediately is really good because you cast a power that's a slow town moving one? That's great. Get ready to fight on the coast. The shore seethes with hatred is perfect here. It gets you a fear, gets you a Badlands, and a Wilds token.
Ooh.
Wilds token will come in clutch to stop that coastal explorer. And also, that Badlands is great, but this card can only be used on the coast. Totally fine!
Against Scotland, that's perfect.
You totally want that. So just the mindset of hitting the coast. Specifically, honestly, when it comes to things that help, think about the coast. Ironically, Ocean, in some people's opinions, actually ain't so great at this. And we're going to go into that next week when we talk about everyone's opinions and the data and the votes and whatnot. But if you were to ask me that question, I would say Isolation is awesome.
Yeah.
Bad guy movement is awesome because you can move the towns immediately away from those coastal lands. Or if you're Finder, you can get those cities off the lands and work on that additional loss condition.
Turn 1, yeah.
Right, you can be like, no! The very first time I ever played as Finder, it was against a level 4 Scotland. And we were like, get off! And
you were the MVP. You kept us away from the loss condition.
We had Fractured in that game too, ironically.
As Laura, do you remember that?
I've blocked that from my memory completely.
That was the very interesting game with the questionable team composition with Jonathan, where we had Stone, Fractured, Finder, and...
Missed!
Hooray.
Missed.
What about you, John? What would be your general...
I want to hear Laura's thoughts first.
Oh.
Well, When we're actually playing, I'm always like, wait, who are we up against?
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we need to make little coats for our people. Like the little plastic pieces.
I'm not super good at painting
Everybody
figures.
walks around with a flag.
It is hard to look at an adversary that's so well equipped, though.
That's the thing,
You know what I mean?
Ryan. That's why I'm trying to ask the question, because
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, how do you stop them? Because they're good at everything.
Yep, control is always good,
Yeah.
especially when you're confiding them. Unfortunately, they're going to fight you with the control because they're adding over here, adding over there. Their level 6 thing is like, hey, guess what?
Adjacency build.
Adjacency build in coastal lands. Ugh.
I mean, I'd say my normal theory is just pick who you like and you do well with, and then do it well.
Wow.
Don't suck.
Someone put that on t-shirts.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Do it well and do it well.
What? I am curious, John. We've heard Ryan's very actually well thought out strategy. And what is yours?
I'll just say from my point of view that escalation is difficult. So our communication was so pivotal in figuring out who needed help, and more often than not, it was me. So helping out your team in whatever way, sending Dahan, creating more Dahan, teleporting Dahan to help out with that escalation, because that board, if you're having a bad game for Scotland, they make it worse. Right. And if you are on the struggling board, which I was, it got worse. So I think our communication won us the game, I think.
I think so.
I would agree with that.
So talking it out and helping out that person that isn't doing so well is helpful.
In line with the fact that we also had capabilities to things that we really needed. What if you don't have the capability to just go balls to the wall fear? Because if you are just like, half committed to fear, might not cut it. We have Downpour and Thunderspeaker just killing everything.
Yeah.
We had access to good fear, but we also really could benefit from a ton of defense. Gotcha, fam.
You got that?
And I can do it consistently, which is great. I'm not saying those are the only two things you need, but we had access to high offense. We had access to high defense. We had access to high fear. Remember when we were talking about how it's like, how are you going to succeed with offense? How are you going to succeed with defense? How are you going to succeed with fear? Well, so long as you have high quantities of all three, that's probably the best you're going to do.
Probably is.
There are edge cases, I am sure. There are really fortunate card draws and events that you can have, or maybe fear cards, I am sure. But that's how we did it, and it felt great.
It did. It felt like we ran a marathon.
It really did.
It was a long game, not in a bad way, but we had to talk out through growth phases or in between fast and slow, and then we did get down to the last card turn.
Yep.
So
Am I wrong, though? I feel like I said I had played easier games that weren't as much fun.
Explain.
I don't know. It was difficult, but it was also like engaging and fun.
This was a hard game that you enjoyed more than easier games in the past.
Yeah, and I don't always enjoy hard. I remember you made me play Russia at level 10.
You hated Russia.
Shut down
We
for
have-
a weekend.
We have yet to play Russia again. Between Laura and I. Obviously, me and Ryan. Yeah, me and Ryan have played it again. But you hated Russia.
Yeah,
so you like Scotland.
that was like not fun.
Yeah.
This one was fun. It was hard.
It was hard.
I remember when we actually had the spark of, guys,
We're like
I think I can do it. I think I can do it. And I was like, yes!
And then,
yes!
Ryan, you had the killing off to get us to the fear victory.
Yep, the final kill.
I think it's cool
like
we had a
11
fear victory against 16 fear cards. It almost feels like an achievement in a way.
In a way, yeah. Like, you're the number one adversary who's the most equipped against this, and yet we still got it.
Beat them at their own game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right, Laura. That was a fun game. I like that parting thought.
I hope this has been helpful to anyone who maybe hasn't fought them yet or is scared to. It's doable. I mean, they're difficulty 10. They ain't no slouch.
No, they are difficult.
But
yes.
And Eric Royce himself said in our interview he designed Scotland and Habsburg because people were beating the older adversaries so much.
Right.
So he thought, like, okay, let's turn on the jets for these adversaries.
Right. And he told us that they were going to spit the buildings.
And they sure did.
So there you go. There was our experience with fully leveled up, level 6, Scotland.
I like how we do these episodes because it is fun, yes, to talk about the adversary, but I always like hearing tactics of how Downpour uses certain cards and makes other wetlands, how Thunderspeaker can split up her army, or like what Fractured is about in a playable spirits. It is fun to talk about the spirits and tactics attacking a certain adversary.
Yep.
So, good job, everyone.
Next week, we are going to look into the data and the results of the survey that we had. And we got some interesting numbers, let me tell you.
It's going to be amazing.
Y'all left some great feedback too. Can't wait to get to it. So until that time, we will catch you guys next week.
Peace out.
Bye.
Who's ready to take on the adversary of England? It is no accident that England is the last foe waiting for us at the finale of this adversary series. Regarded as one of the toughest enemies ever since the game's release, England has terrorized the player base with their bonus health and their extra builds. Yet every adversary can be defeated, and we want to hear your thoughts on how to make that happen, as well as who can make that happen most effectively. In the description of this episode, you'll find the link to our surveys we've posted for gathering the data needed to make these episodes a reality. Come lend your voice on the matter so we can learn what you all think are the best ways for taking down this adversary, as well as what strategies should be avoided when playing against them. We're looking forward to this one, and we can't wait to see what you all have to say. Until that time comes, enjoy Scotland's finale next week, and remember to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay awesome.